but this is probably the sexiest movie of the summer.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about right there.
Drive-by movies you're watching.
Fresh releases.
My name is Blaise.
And I'm James.
And this week, we're talking about Richard Linklater's latest film, Hitman.
My name is Gary Johnson, and my simple question for you is, who is your Hitman? We'll see.
Hitman just made its debut on Netflix. It's about a professor who's moonlighting as a hitman of sorts for his police department. And he eventually descends into dangerous, dubious territory when he finds himself attracted to a woman who enlists his services as a hitman. That is quite the plot. That is quite the story. And all I've got to say is that is quite the script written by Glen Powell and Richard Linklater. They're a great duo. Great to see them working back together again after everybody wants them. Because I'll say, Glen Powell, he's been making a lot of popularity with audiences over Anyone But You, and as well as Top Gun Maverick, of course. But you and I, we've known he was one of the better parts of Everybody Wants Some. That whole cast is great. And there's also some familiar faces from that movie in this movie, Hitman. I quite enjoyed myself. Blaise, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. This hit it out of the park for me. I felt like it was that perfect kind of mixtape to Richard Linklater's career all in one film. It was almost like that meme of like the starter pack meme, but if you'd never seen a Richard Linklater movie and you have Netflix and Hitman's your first film of his, it's the perfect starter pack. It just gets you equipped to like, you can then, go down his filmography in any which way you like and get any which way loose that you want to. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I would say like this is that film of at least the summer for me to kick it off, really, because I think it had a little bit for everyone. And it was even something that I've been clamoring for is just that kind of, I like those erotic thriller type films that have gone away. This wasn't quite that, but this is probably the sexiest movie of the summer.
Yeah, and it's crazy. A lot of people will say, I look forward to summer season for the movies just because that's when you expect the big blockbusters or the big director movies to come out, weekly. That hasn't been happening this year. So much at the mainstream level, like 2 weeks in a row watching Challengers and this, and also Furiosa, also Kingdom and the Planet of the Apes. While those are like way higher budget movies, but back to back after Challengers and this, which I claim Challengers was the best movie of the year so far that I had seen. And even though I still prefer that movie over this movie, they're two very different drinks here, of course, but Hitman though is just absolutely fantastic watch, and yeah, I can't recommend it enough. Exactly like you said, if you're gonna watch a Richard Linklater film first, like of course there's School of Rock, there's the Before trilogy, which are my favorite movies by him, but no, this is a great one with just like a lot to take in, whether you like romance, comedy, or even some action. Even though this movie is not an action movie, you would get the idea with it being called Hitman, and we just had that David Fincher movie last year. The Killer, exactly. Yeah, like this is a very different movie, but fantastic.
Definitely. I feel like it has a little bit for everyone. And I just love seeing Glen Powell's ascent. He kind of really hit the mainstream with Top Gun. He had, a great role in that film, Top Gun Maverick, that is. But kind of seeing him, take on, more of that collaborator role here with Richard Linklater. We'd seen him in Everybody Wants Some. He's just a bit part in that ensemble of a film. But seeing him, help pen this movie with Richard Linklater, I think some of the strongest things about this film is the script. Like, it's just really well written. It really keeps you entertained. It's funny at times. It's honestly laugh out loud funny. I was cracking up in certain moments of the film, although the whole film isn't full on comedy. There's some really funny moments in this movie.
Definitely want to give a shout out also for just this kind of feeling like the indie background within this movie with just it being bought or Netflix acquiring it after it premiering at some film festivals too, just because this feels like a return to roots, because Richard Linklater always makes like kind of big movies and then just disappears for like half a decade or maybe even a decade with a couple small films. His last movie was that Netflix animated movie that we checked out here on this show. What was the name of that one again, Blaise?
Apollo 10.5.
I knew it was Apollo something, but I was just like, the 10.5 didn't sound right. But yeah, thank you for that. But, I wanted to give a shout out to his movie with Jack Black called Bernie. That was a movie that we checked out back in our old podcast days that we thoroughly enjoyed. And it's a movie that I forgot about and definitely want to rewatch again. I think that's one of the first movies I ever watched on Netflix streaming. And just here we are coming full circle into a movie that premiered on Netflix that they acquired from Richard Linklater, and I hope they keep doing more projects like this. And I'm glad that Glen Powell really took initiative with writing a script with him, just to show that he's not just a Hollywood pretty boy. He wants to go into filmmaking eventually.
Definitely. And I think that was probably one of my favorite aspects, was just the fact that he's kind of stepping up. That's something that I honestly, by the time this film ended, I was even hoping, I even asked my wife, I'm like, honestly, do you think how fast is Marvel going to come in and swoop him to be the next Captain America or whatever kind of superhero for the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Because it just feels like it's trending that way. I really hope it's not, but I mean, if the bag is big, I don't blame him for taking it. But yeah, I think that he has more to offer here. I would like to see him, in other capacities, really crafting his own path through Hollywood, because it feels like this really just set him up. Look at how much more talented I am than just, being a pretty face, and obviously he's going to be on some type of GQ list or whatever, whatever list there is, a bachelor list for sure. But yeah, I feel like he has a lot more to offer, and this was a great glimpse at that. But yeah, I thought that this film was honestly hilarious. I thought it did such a good job of kind of taking all those elements that we really love from the Before trilogy and kind of doing it in a more kind of way that's easier to, more palatable to your average or casual film goer, or even doesn't even have to be film goer. It could just be Netflix watcher, because I feel like even somebody that even watches, I know some of the critique has been that some of the side characters in this film felt like just big characters from a sitcom or something, because they really don't aren't there other than to set up jokes or prop the story up. And I felt fine with that. I mean, the main focus of the film is the Glen Powell and also Adria Arjona's characters romance. I didn't mind that there were bit character parts, because that's something that I've always been complaining about for, I feel the longest time, is just the character actors are disappearing. And these two actors that I wasn't familiar with, I know that one girl's from Parks and Rec, but yeah, seeing those small character bit roles, okay, yeah, it doesn't lend that much to their careers, but it was cool to just see that element that might be more palatable to your average Netflix watcher who only watches random sitcoms or stuff like that. It felt like this might be more easily digestible than if it took the more Before Sunrise, very indie route of just focusing on those two characters.
Yeah, absolutely. And going with that too, I definitely wanted to give credit, into minor spoiler territory, but just give credit to both Powell and Linklater for writing these characters that are definitely they're likable, but they're not good. Yet you don't want to see them, necessarily don't want them to succeed, but you don't want them to fail towards some of the crazier climactic sequences at the end of the movie. So, and just getting that weird, dark, humorous ending just kind of feels really off guard if you were to compare it to the opening of the movie. And his character just goes on a complete different the opposite of the hero's journey almost. So that was just really nice to see, and I give credit for creating these very likable characters that don't, in creating an ending that you would not expect. I think a lot of people probably would have expected it to end one way, and it doesn't. It really goes in just that really dark ending, and just you think like, okay, well, there's going to be some sort of resolution here, and like, nope, it's going to keep going in that direction that it like laid on in that final sequence. So really enjoyed and applaud for that effort.
Yeah, and I'll have to say, I don't know if it totally stuck the landing, but I was there for the laughs where I was like, okay, what, like, as long as you made me laugh, I guess I'll let you have the ending there. Like, the rest of the film will you know, make up for that. But I can't guarantee that it stuck the landing for me at the end there, but I was at least cracking up where I feel like, okay, fine, I'll give it to you. You could take it there.
My only gripe, like this is spoiler territory now, was the fact that it was such a big time jump to where, what was it, like 2 or 3 kids at that table? It would have been funnier if it was them two, like, you know, Rich have a house and they're hosting his best friend, his ex-fiance or ex-wife or whatever it was at the beginning, and it's her baby now grown up as a child, and he's just like that weird of a go-getter, nice guy, like just like, you know, please them all kind of person. I don't know like what that would have said about his character, but I just thought that would have felt more full circle and also comedic at the same time. Like, why are they having dinner with his ex-girlfriend? Like, it is his best friend, but now they're helping raise the kid, and they're just some weird messed up family that just got away with murder. I thought that would have been funnier.
Yeah, you could definitely take it a couple avenues, and I didn't see the ending coming at all. That's kind of why I feel like it didn't stick the landing totally, but I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, I mean, I've seen Bernie, like you mentioned earlier. I've seen some other more outlandish kind of Richard Linklater movies, and it definitely felt like he borrowed a little from, you know, just that dark comedy aspect that we've seen him go into at times. You know, he's a very well balanced filmmaker, and I have to say, I think he's probably, and I don't know if this is a hot take or not really, but I haven't heard many people say it, but I think he's the most important American filmmaker working at the moment.
He has the most diverse catalog, I'd say. That's very impressive. Like, he's one of those musical artists that, like, you know, is always like selling out like auditoriums or like big like stadiums, maybe not stadiums, but like arenas and stuff. He's always just he's knocking it out of the park. He's always been around, and you're just like, damn, like I know why he's sticking around and still drawing this crowd. But just like he's just got a very diverse resume to his name. And looking at his letterbox, Blaise and I just watched the Scanner Darkly before reviewing this movie, and it's just like going from that to this, and then also thinking back to movies like Bernie and School of Rock that we mentioned, the Before trilogy, just whether it's the indie filmmaking aspect or the great writing or just like the diversity of going into animation, making a kid's film, it's ridiculous what he's done. And yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying. Do you guys agree with what we're saying? Let us know in the comments below. Great way to help support the show. The movie's on Netflix, so be sure to watch it and come back here letting us know what your thoughts are about it.
And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and click that notification bell to get all of our latest updates.
And speaking of updates, be sure to catch all our social media links down below. We got Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and our own Letterboxd accounts. That'll conclude this week's episode. Tune in next week for a brand new video.